Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us in today's Lunch and Learn session. Today we have another special guest. We have Jamie Knight here. Before we get started, I'm just going to give anyone who is interested in attending and has just started to log on a few minutes. So we'll give people a few minutes to join the session. In the meantime, if anyone already on the chat or already on the call wants to say hello, please say hi in the chat. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are, what you do, and if you have any questions, please post that in the chat. In the meantime, I'm just going to go around and give you a quick introduction of who we are, who I am, and what to expect going forward. And if you have any questions, again, please put that in the chat. Now, for context, for those of you who've joined us before, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us again. For those of you who are here for the first time, my name is Rajiv. I am a, well, your MC co-host for today's session, technically. So I will also be monitoring the chat and taking any questions. I'll bring them to Jamie later on. And before we get started, I'd just like to remind everyone that at the moment, you may not be able to unmute yourselves or turn on your cameras. Please refrain from trying to do that for the time being. We will have an interactive Q&A session later on during the meeting call today, and you can bring your questions directly. In the meantime, if there is anything you want to add or you have a question, as I said earlier, please put that in the chat. We will have about an hour or so for the presentation itself, and then we've got about 20-25 minutes towards the end dedicated towards Q&A. Right. Now, as some of you may be already aware, Purple Beta is a training provider. We do everything from apprenticeships to boot camps, and we host a number of these sessions yearly. So we have one every month on the second Tuesday of the month, typically, but that's sometimes we do move things around like we have for this week. Now, I'm pleased to hand over to our guest speaker for the day. We have Jamie Knight. Jamie, over to you.
Hello, folks. Hello, everyone. Hey, oh, Janet's having a salad. Several people are having a salad. Janet in Manchester's having sunshine. Sunshine for lunch. That's just showing off, Janet. God, I wish I had some sunshine. We've got sky puddles here. Uh, anyway, hello, Sunny Valencia. I'm just going to close the chat now. That's just making me envious. And someone's got biscuits. Gosh, I have a can of Coke and fruit. Anyway, hello, everyone. I am Jamie. Hi. Ironically, I'm actually wearing that exact jumper right now, which is a bit of a coincidence that I realised just as I sat down. You'll probably know me as Jamie, and you probably know that I'm autistic as heck, and autistic, ADHD, neurodivergent as heck. And there's a large fluffy lion who hangs around with me called Lion, who you might be familiar with. Big fluffy fella, about 4 foot long. When I introduce myself, I say to people, "Hi, I'm Jamie. This is Lion. We like being helpful in making things." We've been at it quite a long time and we kind of get bored really easily, as I mentioned, neurodivergent as heck. And over the years, I've worked with lots of different places, 11 years with the BBC. I've worked with large tech companies. I've done podcasting, built adaptive cycles, built financial crime detection platforms, done game studio stuff, all sorts of things. So basically, I'm one of these people who fiddles with things. When I was a kid, I took apart the VCR, but I was also the kid that didn't know how to put it back together. So, this is the sort of level of nerd that we're dealing with. Um, and when I was first asked to do this talk derives from a talk I did for International Day of People with Disabilities a few years ago. I did that thing where I sat down to update it in 10 minutes and spent 3 hours rewriting half of it, as you do. When I was first thinking about AI and accessibility, there is just so much there is to talk about and pull apart. Some of it good, some of it scary, some of it really screwed up. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to talk about the lenses I use when I think about myself and what I do. I want to tell some stories. And the main goal here is to share some practical stuff, some examples, some things, and to tell the stories behind them. Because I think sometimes the storytelling is as important as the content, as the thing, but also the stories themselves build on lenses. So, what do I mean by a lens? Well, let's start off with the first one. My body is different to most of the people around me in various different ways to do with how I interact with things, how I perceive and respond to the environment. And most places aren't really designed for people like me. They contain these barriers. So, for example, many places are going to be too bright or too loud, or I'm going to find them too freaking confusing. Or with my wobbliness from spinal cord injury a few years ago, too many steps, too much moving to need to do. So these are the barriers. It's in the environment there are these barriers, and they get in the way and they limit me. And my path to thriving that we've discovered over the years is to remove these barriers. That's how I thrive. That's how my life is good. Or to put it another way, being autistic isn't what disables me. It's the barriers in the environment that disable me. It's the barriers that trip me up. So if I can get rid of the barriers, I thrive. So there's lots of different ways to solve barriers. One of the main ones is that I get a lot of help. If anyone's ever seen me at an in-person event, they might be familiar with Boop, one of the support people in my life, or Mike or Ed, all these different people who help me do things. And we sort of have this default position, which is essentially just assume I'm a giant 5-year-old. And if you are going to make me a Thomas the Tank Engine cake out of Oreos and icing, I will love you forever. Just as a hint, just in case you ever want to bribe me, Thomas the Tank Engine cake, that's the way to go. And what I mean by that is we use tools that work. So, for example, normally I'd be sat here with a sippy cup. I actually have a can of Coke right now, which is sort of like a sippy cup. We use tools that work. Tools are anything that helps remove a barrier. So, for example, I'll use sippy cups because if I knock a drink over, I have to tidy it up. That's lots of energy. I don't have lots of energy, so I'll just use a sippy cup or a can. I use assistive augmentative text tools like this Proto to Go app. If I'm in an environment where my words are very tricky, I can use the text to talk instead. We also enable data to help me communicate. So I've got a smartwatch. And I can remember a few years back, I had a new support person. I was trying to explain to people, hey, I'm really uncomfortable with this person. It's really not working. And in the end, data told the story for me. I couldn't communicate in words quite how distressed I was until I pointed out that my heart rate was 130 continuously for like 4 hours. Yeah, I was really not comfortable with that person, right? So tools are things that remove barriers, and it's the barriers that get in the way of me thriving. AI is just a new tool, right? It's just a tool. It's just a piece of tech. Now, there's a lot more to it than that, but fundamentally, that's kind of where I was starting from. I am hugely skeptical of AI. When I started this exploration and when I started kind of exploring all this stuff, I was even more skeptical. Well, in some ways, I was less skeptical than I am now, and I was more skeptical than I am now, which we'll come on to in a bit. But I needed to go and experiment. I needed to make up my own mind. I needed to play with these tools and understand them. And I didn't even set out to build anything. I just sat down for a fiddle and a little bit of a play with it. To go back to that previous analogy, I got the screwdrivers out and I opened up the VCR to see what would happen. And when I was a kid, nothing good is the answer. But as an adult, things do tend to go a little bit better. So there's three things I want to talk about with this. So the first one is can AI help me, Jamie, like today? What barriers can it help me with? How does it help? Can AI be safe? What can we do to make it safer? How do we deploy this tool without harming myself or other people? And then finally, because controversy, I'm not worried about controversy, is AI good? There's that classic line they didn't stop. They were so obsessed with if they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And dear God, there's a lot of that happening in AI. But that's the end of the talk. First of all, I just want to talk about the more day to day, the barriers. Can AI help me remove barriers from my life? Yeah, in a nutshell, yeah, I think so. And whilst I've been playing with this, I've ended up with two areas where it's kind of helping me remove barriers. So it's like day-to-day barriers, things that happen in my day-to-day life, and kind of structural barriers. So, for example, with day-to-day barriers, one of those first barriers is around food. I find food and food prep really, really tricky. A lot of neurodivergent people do. It's difficult for a bunch of reasons, but part of it is because it's guesstimating stuff. So I was just mentioning to Dimple before I started the call that I've got more flying lessons coming up, hopefully. I'm not allowed to drive a car because I can't guesstimate very well. If I'm trying to, I'm not very good at crossing roads because I'm really bad at trying to guesstimate. Am I going to get hit by that car? Are they going to pull out in front of me? All that sort of thing. I'm not good at guesstimating, but I'm very good at procedures and process. So when I'm in a plane and I'm flying a plane, which is a terrifying concept, and I feel very sorry for my boyfriend who sat in the back of my first lesson on a very windy, very bumpy day. That was great fun. He sent a video to his mum just to kind of remind her and go, ha, ha, this maybe wasn't a good idea. Anyway, I'm good at flying a plane because it's all processes and procedures. I'm not good at guesstimating stuff. How long should I cook something for? Why? How much? All those sorts of things. Also, getting things into the right order, trying to make it so all the food is all ready at the same time, etc. And then finally, keeping safe, making sure I start and stop with the same number of fingers. That's apparently important, I'm told. Sir, there's a fly in my soup. No, 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 that's a finger. Not allowed to do that. So, one of the first areas where I started using AI was to build myself a little microwave helper. And it might sound like a very weird thing to do, but microwaving stuff that doesn't have a label is really hard. I'll have someone like Boop, who's a support person, who'll make me a lovely meal, and I'll have leftovers, and I won't have a clue how long to microwave it for. And I used to ask people a lot or try and do it, but a lot of the time, the friction to ask someone and have that interaction and distract someone and get in the way, it didn't feel great. So I'd end up eating things cold or not eating things. So I ended up building a little AI microwave helper. This was one of my first projects. The basic idea is I tell it what I've got and it tells me how to microwave it. So, for example, to read the slide, so this picture on the left, this is the user interface for it. How long should I microwave a medium slice of Pizza Hut pepperoni, which has been in the fridge? And the answer, to make your pizza hot and yummy, microwave it for 20 to 25 seconds. Check if it's hot enough. If not, add 5 more seconds. Be careful, it might be hot. Not the best answer, I don't think, but it's a starting point. And funnily enough, sometimes if the answer is a bit weird, I just hit that little refresh button and I get 3 or 4 answers and see if they all sort of line up. Um, so this is a tool that I built. It's a very simple thing because, as I said before, assume I'm 5. You don't have to be a world-leading chef to help me cook. You just have to remind me not to microwave it for 3 hours. You know, it doesn't have to be great, it just has to be better than nothing. So we built this tool and it sort of works in addition to the support that I have. So it's not replacing real people, it's kind of augmenting them. And when I built it, it's got lots and lots of guardrails. So within the thing called the system prompt, kind of the thing that tells it how to act, it's telling things like if it doesn't know, don't guess. If anything needs microwaving for more than I think it's 8 minutes, tell me to get help, and things like that. It's got all these different prompts in it. And that's how it's built. It is a custom wrapper around a very small AI model, and it's a system prompt telling it its role and information about my microwave. So I built this little thing, and I ate more hot meals. So, kind of as a first project, I was pretty chuffed with that. That was one of these little things that I sat down and built one afternoon, and I used it lots for weeks and weeks. And then it had a software update, and I stopped using it because I couldn't work out how to install the software update. As I said, take the VCR apart, don't necessarily put it back together again. But I built it, and it was useful. And there's now a newer version of this that I'm playing with that actually has more embedded data. But anyway, there's an example. Eating more hot meals because the AI tool is just helping me. It's just giving me that little bit of shape and structure. The next area is around barriers at home. It's around things like, is it okay? Getting stuff done. I ask a lot of questions that start with, is it okay? Is it okay to? Is it, can I do this? What about this? Is this doable? So I started building like a little QA helper. The idea here is it helps me with these day-to-day questions, the checking it's okay, but it also helps me with background knowledge for things, right? So I can ask it things like, is it okay to store fresh towels in a bathroom? And it's not, it's probably not the world's most complicated question. I could probably Google it and then look at 10 things. But if I'm just looking for a little bit of a hint, that's pretty good. And this works by just a wrapper around a larger model. This is a 70B model, which means it's about 45 gigs in size. But that downloads the entire model forever. It never goes to the internet again. So that's a larger model. It's got more inbuilt knowledge. And that ends up looking something like this. So this one, which is funny because the exact same question came up chatting to my flatmate last night. The question was, what does 4.5 kilo rating mean for a washer dryer? Is that 4.5 kilos of wet clothes or 4.5 kilos of dry clothes? So I put the question in the top and it gives me an answer. This is an almost completely basic model. The only thing that I've done is I've given it some instruction and a system prompt to say, you are assisting, well, actually, I'll come on to the exact prompting later, but I basically said, you are assisting an autistic person. Please give them advice. Please don't make things up, blah, 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 blah. So this was the second project that I built, just a little wrapper. And it led to me having more confidence when I'm home alone. Like being home alone is something I struggle with, especially staying safe. And this gave me that bit more confidence, a little bit more to bounce things off of. So, not bad. I was kind of happy with that. So I've kind of had a couple of experiments at this point. I'll talk about the exact setup in a bit because that's kind of important. But I'm starting to see areas where it can help me and it can help remove some of these barriers. And then the thing that kind of is kind of fundamental is my primary impairment, when I'm not falling over or being wibbly wobbly, my primary impairment is cognitive, it's understanding things. Or as some people put it, it's making things fit the shape that it will fit in my head. And that's where kind of the AI has been really useful because it's like a cognitive transformer. It can take information in one sort of shape and reshape it into something else. So that's like my third kind of large, well, my third kind of initial AI project. It was a Jamie explainer. So I ended up building this tool, and I'll show you how I did that in a minute, that knows about me and it understands me and what makes me work, what things I find easy, what things I find hard. And I can use it to get explanations for things, but also to rephrase things. So, for example, understanding my gas bill, going, explain how my gas bill converts gas into cost. I don't quite crock this. How's this working? I have it explain what a unit is and whatnot. But also rephrasing instructions. I do a lot of work for lots of different companies, and I have to set up all of those horrible vendor portals. You know, in order to invoice us, please send a purchase order. In order to get a purchase order, please sign up to this platform and that platform and whatever. So I've been using this tool to rephrase vendor instructions. So when I get an email with 300, 600 words telling me what to do, I check it at this tool and go, break this down into tasks for me, things like that. So a little bit about how I built this. The way that it basically started is when you're building an AI tool, you have a system prompt, which is what these are, which is sort of telling the tool what to do. You then have different models that you can run it against, and then you have a space for a response. The way that I built this tool is I needed to work out what to tell the AI in order to get it to do things that were useful for me, in order to explain things in a way that I'm going to understand. So I played with different models and with different prompts. So, for example, the prompt that sounds like it would work the most, like you are helping a young child understand complex text. Summarize the following text, removing idioms, removing language that could be misunderstood if taken literally. Do not exceed 150 words. Provide a reference back to the original text for all facts in the summary, right? That's kind of trying to explain what to do. But there's also things like explain the text below to an alien who has the knowledge of an adult but the reading ability of a 5-year-old human. Of the two, the second one actually does better for some reason, right? So I ended up playing around with all these different models and all these different system prompts. This is just like a fraction of the ones that I ended up testing. And I kept trying different ones to see what would work best for me. And this was quite an interesting one. And a couple of months back, I found myself on the stage with the head of accessibility for someone from Meta. And one of the dangers of this is bias. And they have a model called Llama. And one of the things that's interesting about Llama is if I tell it I'm autistic and I argue with it, it spirals off and gets really aggressive. And if you keep going, it will eventually start getting racist. It's kind of terrifying what it does. So, for example, if I tell it I'm autistic, it doesn't really do anything useful. It simplifies things as in it uses smaller words, but it then combines them in ways that aren't actually any more sensible than the original text, right? So I've been playing around with this and ended up building this little system prompt based on the alien one. Explain the text below to an alien who has the knowledge of an adult but the reading ability of a 5-year-old human. That kind of balanced speed and quality. It's a short prompt. It processes quickly. It gives good outcome. And it seems to work quite well. I reckon if something comes back in less than 5 seconds, that feels about fast enough. So by doing this, I built this tool that summarizes things for me. And I don't even use it every day, but it's the right tool when I hit a certain type of barrier. Like I know I have another annoying vendor onboarding. I literally got the email for it this morning, and I will chuck it into this tool and go, hello, please break this down into steps for me. And then I'll follow those steps, right? So it's a practical, useful thing in my day-to-day life, which is kind of handy. The result of that is it's made me more confident interacting with the world. Whereas before I might have shied away from doing certain types of work. So, for example, I've done less work with unis over the last few years because university billing systems are a colossal pain in the butt. With this tool helping me, I'm a bit more confident with it. I'm doing more uni work again because I'm not as put off by the billing process because I know I've got this little tool that can help me. So they're kind of the sorts of tools that I'm doing with like day-to-day barriers at home. But there's also other stuff as well. There's help with structural barriers in my work and play. So by this I mean kind of things where society need me to do something one way, but I can't crowbar my brain into it. I'm going to pause for a moment and have a little look at the chat just to see if there are any burning questions. Bum, 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 bum. Michael Armstrong took his record player apart, stayed age 2. Good work, Michael. Okay, so no, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat yet, so I will bounce on. So hopefully this is all making some sense. Hopefully. I'm not on my ADHD meds today, so you're getting raw, unfiltered Jamie brain, which is, varying quality. Okay, so barriers of work and play. So one of the places where AI has been really, really useful for me, and this is like my fourth project, is in building tools. So a little bit of story time. Probably 2 years ago now, 18 months ago, I started doing a bit of project for the Lego. I started doing a bit of work for Play Included, which is funded by the Lego Foundation. And essentially, what we needed to do was move a whole bunch of content from one place to another and fix all the accessibility problems along the way. That's in a nutshell. That's what we had to do, just for I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words of content spread across dozens and hundreds of pages in multiple different formats and 5 languages. Anyway, it's fine. I have no trauma from this project. So I had to do this thing where I did this project, take the content from Contentful, put it into Storyblock. And along the way, we encountered a problem that there was like 100 images that all needed alt text. And the images were really contextual, so the same image file in different places would require different alt text. Now, the thing is, I could just do this in a CSV file. Like, it's a fiddly slow task. ADHD brain go melty, hide behind sofa. This is not the sort of thing I'm good at. So I kind of needed to find a way to speed this up. I didn't need the task done for me, but I needed a better way to do it. I needed tooling. So I ended up building this. This is a little alt text tool, and it's really quite straightforward. I generated this tool in about an hour. It is a Swift UI app that runs on Mac, iPad, and iPhone. And what it does is it takes a folder of images, and it shows me the image, and it gives me a box to type the alt text in. And then, because I love to gamify everything I do, the little icon goes green. So I know when I'm done when all the icons go green. And then at the end of it, it saves it all to a file in the right format to push to the Storyblock API. So it would have taken me a very, very long time to click through a spreadsheet to do this task, look at a picture, write it. I'm not going to let the AI write the alt text. AI is still very bad at writing alt text. So I still needed to handwrite the alt text, but I needed a tool to enable me to do it faster. And as a bonus, I needed it to spit the data out in the exact format I needed, right? So in under an hour, I was able to summon into existence this very neat little app that does a very specific thing. And what I ended up doing is I'd generate the app, tweak it a bit, do like 5 or 6 more and go, ooh, I'd like to change the layout, regenerate it, recompile it, tweak it. So I found myself playing with the app while I was doing the task. And in the end, I got it done way faster than if I'd had to do it in a spreadsheet because I used AI to generate the kind of custom user interface to help me solve that problem. And this happened again on the same project. As I said, we're moving content from Contentful to Storyblock. And one of the questions is, how do I know when I've done? Like, is it done yet? How do I know I've got it right? How do I know what's left to do? How do I catch my silly errors, like when I forget to turn on image tags or accidentally misspell the word aria? Yeah, I was doing aria hidden on some things, and I misspelled the word aria because oops. How do I know this stuff? How can I check this as I go? Well, I could do it manually and audit it, but that's going to get really annoying. So I want to use an automated testing tool, right? Specifically, I want to use Lighthouse. I don't want the AI to do a accessibility test for me. It's still not very good at that. But I want it so every time I do a deploy, it checks all the pages that have been deployed against Lighthouse and then brings the reports into one place with thumbs up, thumbs down, right? So that's what I built. This is a tool. Every time I did a deploy, it loaded a list of all the pages in the deploy. I generated this tool with using AI. So the AI wrote the wrapper around Lighthouse that this works. And it took about an hour. It runs it all. It runs it all in parallel. So it uses all the CPU cores in my desktop. So it's about 15 times faster. And it gives me big visual feedback. So I kind of used AI to, again, generate a tool to make doing the thing I've got to do easier and more effective for me. And then when I was finished, I just threw it away. I didn't even keep the code. I kept the prompts I used, but I didn't keep the code because next time I regenerate it, it'll probably write better code, right? So this sort of idea of, tooling is really important. Tooling is what can take a job from like being a frustrating grind into something enjoyable. Um, and this tooling is easy to generate, easier than ever. It's crazy. It's building this perfect user interface to solve the problem for me right now. It's specific to the problem and to me. By putting green thumbs up and red thumbs downs all over it, it helped me gamify it, helped me have fun with it, right? So that's an example of using AI to generate tooling. The next place I ended up using AI is around reminding me with stuff and sifting information. So this is like my fifth AI project. And remember, I didn't set out to build any of these. I just sat down to play with it, and all of these things happened. Story of my life, really. And on that note, one of the things I do is a financial crime detection platform. We analyze like 10 to 13 billion dollars of payments a day, looking for money laundering and people trafficking and stuff like that. Built it accidentally with a friend. And this is what we built, uses billions. We protect people from harm. And it's great, and it does a lot of things, and I can't remember any of it because I've built it over like 8 years. So one of the things that I did is I fed all of the documentation. The system's called ERMI, ERMI. I fed all of its documentation into an AI model, into a thing called a RAG database or a knowledge base, and then I could ask it questions. Things like, what are the options for client risk ratings? Did I pick numbers 0 to 5, or did I pick words low, medium, high, very high? I can't remember. Or how many currencies do we support? I'm just I'm just writing some copy for the website, and I can't actually remember how many currencies we put in, right? So I can just ask it questions. That has been so incredibly useful to me because it helps when I can't remember. It helps when I'm in information overload and I want to kind of pick up different bits and bobs. The other thing that I did is I fed the code and the tests itself into a similar tool, slightly different model. And one of the questions that we were looking at, one of the things we were looking at, is we had to do some security stuff, and I needed to find all places in the code which, by direct or indirect action, generate a temporary file. Right. So this doesn't necessarily mean to say that the code in the code base says I'm going to make a temporary file. It might be that by doing something like creating a request, it writes a temporary file for the cookies or something. Right. I needed to find every place where it would create a temporary file. I was able to ask the AI to help me with that task. It found a bunch of things that got me started, that got me looking in the right place. And then I wrote a little shim sort of thing that would basically run it and see where the temporary files popped up. To combine the two, some static code analysis using the AI and a little shim and a tester running it on the tool, I was able to find where all the temporary files were and confirm that it did what we thought it did. You can also ask it to do things like run a security audit for input sanitization, making sure that if somebody gives us a dodgy looking string, we're handling it correctly. So this was also another way that the AI was kind of helping me. So the way that I phrase this is the AI tools here, they're assisting me, they're not replacing me. I'm still doing the work, but the tools and the tooling are helping me do it better. In some ways, especially with things like the information sifting, they're helping me kind of work around the cognitive impairment that I experience. I find word finding difficult. I might know the thing, I know that it's a risk ranking thing. I can't remember whether we use numbers or words. Being able to answer that sort of stuff really quickly without having to sift through lots of code, really good. And what's nice is because it's doing semantic search with proper understanding, I can type really bad queries. I don't have to do find and replaces. It's I can give it a vague question and it will sort of refine it with me, and that's quite useful. So finally, the last project I want to chat about is a prototype I built for some gaming stuff. So this is kind of project 6. So basically, I get stuck lots with games and I can't remember things. So I built a little tool and it takes a screenshot. I think in the end I had it every 15 seconds whilst I was playing, about that. So it takes a screenshot all the time. It runs them through a labeling model that I set up, so it analyzes the picture looking for key objects and things like that. Dumps all of that into like a database, and then I can ask another AI model questions when I get stuck, right? And it's set up to give me hints, not necessarily tell me the answer, but give me hints or suggestions. So, for example, I can ask it things like, "When did I last pass a health pack?" And it might answer with, if I've asked it like 4 times, it might go, "The last health pack you passed was next to the, I don't know, next to the dead Nazi on the third level, right?" Or it might say, "You passed a health pack within the last 2 minutes," right? So I can ask it questions like that. But I can also, when I'm trying to fix a puzzle, I'm like, "I'm looking for the bust of a certain person. Where did I last see a statue in the game?" I can ask it, "Have I passed any busts or statues recently?" And it will go, "Oh, yes, you did. There are like 7 of them in the hallway over there. Fantastic. I'll go look at those." So it's helping me remove friction when I get stuck. Now, this isn't a tool that I run all the time. In this case, I was running it on the new Indiana Jones game, but it's removing a barrier that I encounter that keeps it fun, right? I don't want to sit there for 3 hours being fun because I've missed a hint that everybody else has noticed. That's not fun. And when I do game accessibility work, I kind of say to people that games are like this finely tuned pile of barriers where there's a gap between so frictionless it's not enjoyable, click the button, win the game, that's not fun, and actually impossible, in which case that's also no fun. There's a bit in the middle, that's the fun bit. But to do that, that's different for everybody. So when you're building a game or a game experience, you need to finely tune the barriers to make sure that everybody has a fun experience. And that's most of my game accessibility work, is helping people work out where the barriers are so they can tune them. But for this one, the game didn't have that. The game was having a lot of friction. And even if I went online and like Googled a guide, I often hadn't taken the part. Like if you Google a guide and you get to like page 7, but you haven't done the previous 6 pages, it's got assumptions about what you have in your inventory or don't have. So the guides aren't actually that useful. You sort of need to follow them from the start. And that's no fun either. So by doing this, it built a tool that removed frictions and kind of kept the fun. So there you go. So there are 6 things I've built and played with in the AI space to sort of remove barriers from my day-to-day life. So I'm going to pause for a moment before we jump into the kind of non-controversial big topics that I'm sure nobody has any strong thoughts about, and just go, is there any questions about those tools I can quickly answer? I'm also going to use this as a cheeky opportunity to have a little bit of a drink. I mean a little bit of a drink of Coca-Cola, not, vodka. And, wet Coke, not like snoof up a line or two Coke. Any
Jamie,
quick questions?
you're so funny. It's too early to do daytime drinking on a weekday.
I'm a teetotaler, so I don't actually do alcohol at all.
Oh,
Um,
bless.
so every time alcohol comes up, I'm just like, "Yes, yes, fellow alcohol drinker, I know exactly what a stout is." And I'm like, "Isn't that kind of like a ferret?" Turns out that's a stoat. That was a very confusing afternoon. That don't try and drink a stoat; they don't like it. Um, Okay, so I think we're making sense so far. I don't see any questions jumping up yet. And it's funny because like sometimes when I don't see questions, it's because I've confused everyone. Other times I don't see questions because everyone's going, that's interesting. So let's see. If you can muster up some questions for the end, that'll be great. Right, I'm going to take a moment. Let's wade into the waters. Can AI be safe without harming myself or others? No, AI is not safe. It is not safe. It is the very definition of a tool that will blow your own foot off if you're not careful. I have to be really careful. Most AI tools and services are fundamentally not safe. They're often wrong and they're confident when they're wrong. They're not private and they're sharing your data with all sorts of people. The Jaws thing where they send screenshots of what you're working on to OpenAI. Uh, no thanks. No, no, no. And finally, many AI tools burn the planet. They're consuming vast amounts of AI. Sorry, vast amounts of power for stuff that isn't necessarily that useful. They're not safe for us as individuals or as society. And as I said, as I've played with this technology, I've become more alarmed by this tech than ever before. Having used it hands on, where it's, the reason my microwave tool has so many little things going, "Hello, by the way, if it's going to be more than 8 minutes, tell Jamie not to bother." That was me putting a guardrail in when I think I asked it how long to microwave a bowl of soup for. And I accidentally said, I would like to microwave 200 kilos of soup, not 200 grams of soup. And it politely went, "Fantastic, put it on the microwave for 3 days, 4 minutes," you know. And I was like, hang on a minute, that don't seem right. If I wasn't more on the ball, I'd have probably followed what it said. So like confidently wrong is really worrying. And then on top of that, the companies behind most of the commercial API things, they're not good companies like OpenAI and Grok and things like that. Nah, I don't want to touch any of their products. They're not friendly. They're out to do pretty nefarious things. No, don't like it. No, thank you. Not for me. So so fine. AI is a tool, and the commercial AI is kind of scary, and I don't really want to touch it. So where is the nerdy hope? And for me, that the nerdy hope is in these small local models. So all of the things I've shown you, sudden reveal, they're not running on the big commercial providers. They're running on my own machine. They're running on my own Mac. So I'm using small local models. They run on my own computer. They're entirely private. I'm using little models that are really specific to different things. So, for example, I use a model that helps with coding. I use a model that helps with text summarization, things like that. And finally, they're energy efficient. So, training one of these models, well, some of the smaller ones, is about the same as rendering a Pixar film. It's not still a lot of energy, a couple of trips across the Atlantic, which is not nothing. But if I'm using it lots and lots, and lots of people are using it, that's spread over lots of use, maybe not so bad. So they're energy efficient in how they're run because they're running on local hardware. They're not quite so bad in terms of being trained and stuff. I could see them potentially being argued as a net good. Maybe it depends on the details, sort of thing. If they're being trained using fossil fuels, maybe not so much, but it gets complicated. The thing that I use to run them is a tool called Olama, which is it's cool. You can just go and download it, and it's a way of running little tools locally. It will sort of work out what will or won't run on your computer, and it runs on Windows and Mac and stuff like that. You can ask it a question and get an answer. So the Olama runs it. I then have a custom user interface over the top called Web UI, which is what you saw in the screenshots earlier. And then I use different models for different things. So, for example, one of the models that I use is one that was trained by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs, who are a bunch of very serious, very helpful people. And it's a multi-language model. I'm going to call it Token 7B. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's a word that I've only ever read and not necessarily said aloud much. But it's a really good model. It's really good at doing text summarization, for example. Another model that I use is called Gwen Coder. It's a developer support and code generation model trained on open source code. So that's another really handy one. Another one that I use is called Solar Pro. The idea behind Solar Pro is it's an AI model that's designed to run on low end and reused hardware people already have. So the idea is, and there's merit in this, maybe not, is you have this model sat on a laptop, and you take that laptop to a place where there's no internet. And if you need to ask it a question, it's embedded with lots of knowledge from things like Wikipedia, and then it will also have some of the underlying data on it as well. So you can ask it a question, it'll go, okay, look at this Wikipedia page, this Wikipedia page, this Wikipedia page, for places where there's no internet connection, but equally there's not enough space to have a complete copy of Wikipedia, right? Things like that. Because one of the things about these AI models is they're taking terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of content, and they're compressing it down into a couple of tens of gigabytes. Somehow that still works and they can give good answers, sort of. So yeah, so these are sorts of models I use. They run locally on my own computer with complete control, apart from when I break them when I'm updating them, but that's more of a me thing than other people think. My setup's fairly simple, which is I have a Mac that sits on my desk. Its network name is ai.local. And then when I'm on my local network, I just go to ai.local on my phone, and that connects to my AI setup, and I can then pick what model I want to do. So for example, this is the default screen where it's using a model called Llama, and then in that drop down in the top corner, I can select my microwave helper or whatever else. So this is my kind of local AI setup. This is run privately, all on my own hardware, using things that people are open sourcing and giving away for free. So can AI be safe? Yes, kinda ish, maybe, if used with care, running locally using open source models and avoiding the big services. Maybe that's not the answer people are looking for, but it's the answer I've come to, which is AI as a technology has a lot of potential. It's helping my life. I'm eating more hot meals. However, most of the commercial AI stuff scares the pants off me, so I don't really touch it. Not for me. Okay, so last one, again, because, controversy, why not? Is AI any good? Like, where are we at this point? They didn't stop to think if they should thing. Well, let's see. So I think it's really contextual. So the analogy that I would use is AI is like a knife, right? In the hands of some, a knife can cause harm. In the hands of a burglar or someone who means to do you harm, a knife can kill you. In the hands of a surgeon, it can save a life. In fact, I had surgery like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, 10 days, 12 days ago to be specific, where a very friendly surgeon cut my face open to remove a tumor, right? Yeah, my life has been weird the last couple of weeks, by the way. Yeah, surgery, just, it happens. And then the wound opened up and my insides are on the outside again. That's not good. Don't want to do that. But anyway, in the hands of a surgeon, a knife can save your life. In my case, that probably wasn't a life-threatening thing, but they took it away so it couldn't become a life-threatening thing. But in the hands of most people, it's just kind of a useful tool. Now, we're in this weird thing where there's big companies with very specific aims who are trying to make knives they're trying to own the knives and make really big, scary, dangerous knives. When I'm just kind of sitting here going, well, the little AI that I'm using, that's like a little paring knife. Fairly safe, fairly useful. It's helping me. It's removing these day-to-day barriers that help me to live more independently. It's using hardware I have. I didn't buy anything to do this. And it's private and it's energy efficient. So like these little local models, I think they're good and I think they're exciting because they're getting much better all of the time. There's also things like Euro LLM, which is a model being trained by various European universities on ethical data and things like that. So they're catching up with the big players. It's one of the reasons why OpenAI and co are buying all of the RAM to hide it in a warehouse because they can see that other people are catching up. So I think it's like what you use, it's the little models, they're good. And then how you use it is the other thing. So for example, I don't sell the output of what I'm doing with AI. That's not what I'm there for. If I've been asked to go and do an accessibility audit, I'm not going to point it at a tool and go, audit this for me. I might use AI to help me write the report, or I might use AI to help me structure the data. Or like with the Lego project, I might use AI to create a little custom UI so I can do something faster. I never ask it about people. I don't care about people from an AI perspective. It's not a people thing. I don't ask it what someone will think or why or to explain social things to me. I learned badly that it's just rubbish at that. And finally, I don't let it make decisions alone. So this is kind of what I'm saying, like the practical things of like, it's probably worth playing with this local AI stuff, like Llama and stuff, and having a fiddle around. It might be quite useful. However, to be safe with it and to not cause problems, don't sell the output, don't give it the ability to make decisions in your life, And the big commercial stuff, no, that doesn't seem like a good idea to me. Giving all your data to OpenAI or Grok or whoever, no thanks, not for me. Maybe to some other businesses, but not me. So the resounding thing, yeah, some AI is good. Not the stuff that's most popular, but some of it is good. Wait, what a wonderful, compelling argument. So, wrapping all of this up, we've talked about the AI that I use, what barriers it helps with, and how it helps me. Things like eating more food, finding information at work, generating custom UIs. We've talked about AI and safety. How can we use it in a way that we're not going to harm other people? What sort of models are out there? How can we use them? And then finally, is AI good? Yeah, probably. There's definitely some good things here with this technology, but it's about how it's used and how it's deployed and how you're using it that I think makes more of a difference. That knife analogy, kind of sticks in my brain. When I started this talk, I said that one of the things about my life is that I need a lot of help to stay safe, get around, get things done. It's the barriers in the environment that disable me. They limit me. And one of the reasons I love this accessibility work, to kind of bring it back to this, is when we remove barriers, we're turning potential into reality. So when I was 17 and living in supported living and nobody in my life had heard me speak, it was assistive technology to help me communicate and talk that got me out of that situation, that got me to where I am now. Some of the AI, I can easily see a future where some of these AI tools are going to help other people escape that sort of thing and move things forward, not necessarily with communication, but with independence or helping with food or whatever. That's why I love accessibility. And I think AI has a role. AI is this very powerful technology for doing these sort of cognitive transformations of one type of internet and making it one type of information, reshaping it and fitting it into my head. And I think it has the potential to really help a lot of people. It's just also really dangerous. So we need to sort of be excited and optimistic and apply it, but also be cautious. And I guess that's the last of my thoughts on that for now. So yeah, questions and answers. Um, anything you're wondering?
There aren't any questions in the chat, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow attendees to unmute themselves and say hello and ask a question. So give it a second. Yep,
Also,
we've got.
I've done one of the rarest things, which is I've done a talk that came up 10 minutes short. 10 minutes short on a talk, not 10 minutes long. This is how you can tell I've been replaced by an AI robot. That's not very Jamie.
Well, it was a brilliant talk and I enjoyed it quite myself.
Yeah.
Now, we do have Den who's just unmuted himself
Hey,
and there's a question. Yep, go on.
yo, shoot. We can't hear you, Den. I still can't hear anything. Oh, Den
Oh,
has
they've just,
remuted. Maybe check it in the chat room.
yes, checking. Nothing in the chat yet. Kayla does say, not a question, but this was really interesting talk. Also glad that I'm not the only one thinking AI is good or bad.
Yeah, it's not a straightforward dichotomy, right? It's a piece of technology that has good uses and bad uses. Um, there's literal, and this is where like machine learning, AI, the word AI has become polluted by what the large commercial providers are doing,
Mhm.
and lots of broken knowledge and bollocks. But equally, I know that there's an AI tool that's used to detect different types of cancer that is fantastically more accurate than humans,
Mhm.
um, because it's seeing patterns that we can't quantify. It's still getting checked by a human, but as somebody
Yeah,
who's currently waiting for the results of a biopsy, I'm pretty happy that there's technology to help make that faster and easier, you know.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's a complicated topic, and I think the extremes of opinion, and I get people who are extremely against it, most of the time comes down to the commercial providers and how they're purporting it as a tool and what they're doing.
yeah.
But these little AI models, especially the European trained ones, they're shockingly great, and they run on like, they don't quite run on a potato, but you don't need that much hardware to do quite interesting things. So that makes me excited for the future.
That's true. And like I said, I think with all tools, it's how it's being used that
Mm-hmm.
ends up giving us the perspective of whether it's good versus bad. And I think we've seen that through history a bunch of different times. And this is one of those. Um, I personally think this is one of those times where we've got to pay attention and see how it's being used. And these large providers have the influence to turn it into something it shouldn't be. But
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, like you said, we take a little more control, use these smaller models, local language models, and work with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ooh, let's see what things.
I think there's
Uh,
another sort of
Question in the
comment.
chat.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, sort of from Thomas. Great talk, Jamie. Was wondering what does build your own realistically look like for a non-technical person? Do you see new kinds of tools, patterns of support emerging to make that possible?
yeah, I do. So with the tools that I'm using, it's all done via a web interface. So the most basic. So let me little bit of like exploration of how some of these tools work. So I'm going to start by explaining how the ERMI question answering tool works, because I think that's a good example of something that sounds tremendously complicated but is actually fairly straightforward.
Mhm.
So I have Olama installed on my machine, and then I have something called Open Web UI running, which is a user interface for Olama. Within there, I go and I set up a thing called a knowledge base, and I drag and drop all the documents I want in the knowledge base into that. I then have a system prompt where I tell it what its role is. And the system prompt for this is something along the lines of, you are an expert on the documentation of ERMI. You will answer questions for the user, right? I do that, and then I basically click save, and it sets everything up, and then I can ask it questions. The system prompts are kind of hard to write. Like there's a lot of finesse to it to get the right sort of responses that you want. And sometimes I think one of my system prompts for like the microwave one, I don't have it on this machine. It's on my other machine. Just wondering if I can pull it up. I might be able to if we got time. It got longer and longer and longer as I said, oh, yeah, only take measurements in grams, not kilos. If Jamie says kilos, tell him to check his units. Oh, I gave them micrograms because I put an mg in and that's less than a kilo, so it did it again. So that system prompt ends up sort of getting longer and longer. But once you've done that, the one that I use has the ability to track changes in a folder and automatically update the knowledge base. And there's lots of detail of what tool you use to parse the knowledge base and the tokenizer and all these sorts of things. To be honest, for most of them, I leave it on default. And I've only just started playing around with non-default. So for example, if there's a really good tool for doing PDF ingesting, right? So rather than ingest the PDF as a PDF, you convert the PDF into a markdown document, and then you ingest the markdown document, and it works a lot better, uses a lot less memory, right? So you learn little things like that. But I think this is realistic. Right now, with this tool, it's quite nerdy. You're going to need to be someone who knows how to install an app like Olama and is comfortable. For example, Web UI runs in a Docker container, is the way that I've got it set up. If you can start a Docker container, you can start building these things. Or maybe if you have access to someone in your life who can start a Docker container and stick it on your home network for you, you have access to it. I think we are going to get more and more user interfaces. So, for example, the Olama tool that I was talking about, wherever it is, this one. This has only had a user interface for like a short period of time. Up until recently, this was just command line only, but now it's got a little UI where you can type things in and out. I strongly suspect that this will get support for knowledge bases. And once it has that, you can build almost everything I've built here using that tool. There is still subtlety to it. There is still fiddling and tweaking and that sort of thing. So there is still knowledge needed to make it work well. But the actual initial fiddling around and playing with is quite accessible in the general scheme of things. So how's that as an answer? I guess there's like a certain nerdiness barrier to entry right now, but it's not too bad, and it's getting easier all the time.
I think that's a great answer, yes. Because like I said, it does in some instances does require some level of technical knowledge or know-how. But like I said, some of these interfaces are getting more user-friendly, more intuitive, and I agree. Yeah. Hopefully we see a lot more of that and a lot more development, making it more user-friendly and universal.
To jump sideways to a completely different technology is so to jump sideways to a completely different technology, there's a thing called OpenClaw, which is automation of the Mac, right? So this is basically, I haven't played with it yet. I've basically started trying to work out how to set it up in a secure way by reading all the security documentation first, because it sounds terrifying. But essentially, you can use recipes and you can set it up. So the one that I want to try on it is a morning briefing, where it sends me a bunch of Telegram or WhatsApp messages at 7 a.m., which is a summary of the emails I've received and what looks important. It's written draft replies and put them in the draft folder for me. It's checked the news for topics that are relevant to me and told me if anything's come up, and it'll give me a summarization of what's on my calendar for the day. It's done that by driving the Mac itself. It's moving the cursor around to drive my Mac to get all that information. It's reading the computer screen for me. That is both exciting from an accessibility perspective, because it's like ultimate optimization, and utterly terrifying, right? I don't want it anywhere near any of my security credentials or my password manager. Like, when I play with this thing, it's going to be running on a piece of hardware that has nothing to do with my real life. But that's how I sort of build confidence in it, right? That's how I sort of work to understand it. How do we put the safeguards and how do we put the guardrails? So that's using AI and these kind of large language models and vision models in another way again, or an example from my microwave tool is I was experimenting with, if I take a photo of something, can it tell me how long to microwave it for? And the answer right now is no. Like, the AI models aren't really good enough for that. However, I saw just a couple of days ago that there is a new Gemini-derived image visual analysis model. So I'm going to bolt that in and try it at some point. Because what I do is I need the first model to give an accurate description of what's on the plate, and then another model can then tell me how to microwave based on that text description. So sort of chaining together simple models to build up these little tools. So so that sort of thing. Hopefully that kind of helps. I see we do have another question as well.
Yes, we do. So Amdalad asks, what AI tools or prompts can be used to secure your files from hacking? What is the IQ or intelligence level of the LLMs you've suggested?
I don't know, and I don't know. So what did I do? So Gwen Coder runs locally on my own machine, and I've air gapped it in that the container that it talks on, the Docker container, doesn't have internet access. So I can
Hmm.
be absolutely certain that it's not sending my things anywhere, right? It's offline as far as it's concerned. It has limited access to my file system for just the directory of folders for those specific files in that case. What's the IQ intelligence? So how am I protecting it? I'm being pessimistic about the tool and I'm treating it as an attack vector. I'm paranoid. Is probably, if I was totally paranoid, I wouldn't install it.
Hmm.
But I'm doing, maybe you call them hygiene, right? Running it in its
Hmm.
own isolated container, etc.
Right.
And then finally, what's the intelligence level of the LLMs you've suggested? So for Gwen Coder, now remember, I'm not a security specialist, although I work with a security specialist. On Gwen Coder, when we ran it on the ERMI code base, it found 9 things. 7 of
Hmm.
them were sort of wrong. One of them was a huh, can't actually be exploited, but I'll do that. That seems like a good suggestion. And the other one, I never really understood what the hell it was talking about. Right? Maybe because I don't have enough knowledge of security to understand the problem it was trying to explain to me. Where it went, hey, look at this CVE, this vulnerability, and I'm like, I read the vulnerability, and I looked at our code. We don't use that module, so I'm pretty sure it's wrong. You know, it's the same as when you ask them about accessibility. They're not good, you know,
Yeah.
but they're not necessarily. They're better than nothing, and it was still useful, you know. I think for security, it's also stronger than accessibility. Is my interpretation of it. And again, it helps that within ERMI we have a dedicated security expert who has looked at all of these things. You know, who's across it. We're not shooting into the dark. Going back to that principle of never make decisions based on this stuff, I wouldn't run an AI security thing and go, "Yay, it's secure." Um, I would be very interested in running it in like a continuous integration pipeline for a couple of weeks just to see what sort of things it highlights and see whether or not it's making suggestions that are useful or not over time. I've only
Hmm.
used it to do security checks a couple of times. Um, the thing where I needed to find out everything that created a temporary file, that was very impressive because what it did is it read all the source code of all of the dependencies that I was based on. And that's how I found out that the library that I was using to do HTTP requests, network requests, wrote a file to temp with the cookie information in it. And therefore, if temp was compromised, there was actually a leak, right? I probably would have found that by my shimming method if I'd done that, if I'd got far enough. The fact that it found it by looking at all the source code, and I think it processed something like 1.5 million lines of code. So that I found quite impressive as well. So hopefully that's a useful answer. I'm sorry none of these are like, oh, it's amazing and oh, it's terrible. They're all sort of, it depends. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah.
Hi, Jamie.
Michael
It's
just
Michael.
stopped on.
Hello, Trouble. I've known Michael forever, so hello.
Well, not that long. Not
Ah,
that long.
15
I mean,
years,
oh yeah, something like that. That's
half
only a
my life.
youngster.
How can I help?
Well, we've sort of battered things about AI backwards and forwards previously, and you've kind of come to the same conclusion as me, which is if you bound it,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a small enough problem and a small enough data set, it's not predictable, it's useful. Whereas if you throw the whole world's knowledge at it and then expect it to do something sensible, yes, but the whole world's knowledge includes a lot of fiction and other pollutants, shall we say. I think for me the question is to take you slightly off of topic here, which is you've shown these small bounded models, and I'm thinking, that perhaps worth a play with. But what we get in sort of wider field of accessibility is a lot of, oh, we can solve your problem for you. Oh, look, we've got a signing avatar, etc. Are you seeing any service providers or program, app providers that are actually doing something you think is valuable?
Yes, I have, and it's actually one of my favorite examples of generative AI that is not slop. And it's going to be really bad because I've forgotten the name of the company. It's Machine something or other. They do AI generated audio descriptions for games. So if you're a blind user, you can plug this plugin in, and they do AI generated descriptions of the scene. And I was at a UCL event probably about 2 months ago where they were demoing some of what they worked on. And that was really cool. That was like taking what I've done in gaming and boosting it like 10 times. It's not slop, if that makes any sense. It's very well considered. They've worked directly with the blind community to really work out the conciseness of the information that's wanted, and it's doing a thing that could never be done by a human, right?
So within a game, presumably it's got access to the actual scene description.
Yeah, exactly. That.
So it doesn't solve the problem of trying to do audio description for television. Games is a totally different thing where it can do something quite magical almost, because it actually, you're starting with the description of all the objects and non-player characters and things like that. That's really interesting.
Here is, I'll drop it into the text now. Here's a copy of their paper. And then it started getting, explored for commercialization. They've also been looking at things like how could they use generative AI to build, say, like a helpful character that sort of becomes your, sidekick,
your companion. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because that makes so much sense from a sort of role play game kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember their name. They were absolutely brilliant, and it's the.
I'm just opening the paper now.
It's the machine. AI machine, happy machine, something like that. I can't remember their name, but if you Google around, you'll find them. They were very impressive.
So I'm reading the paper, skimming the paper to see if I can.
Shall we see if there's any other questions and then swing back?
Yeah, go
on. Just for
we don't have it.
For context, Michael Armstrong here. He was principal behind so many audio description and subtitling and stuff like that.
Not audio description, subtitles, and sign language. We never got round to tackling audio description. One of my regrets was never being able to do a deep dive in it.
Former BBC R&D engineer. And,
yes, which is how we know each other. And then Gareth Ford Williams formed the triangle of conspirators. And my accessibility. And my accessibility work got shut down because I think I was being a bit too successful in some quarters.
Yeah.
We upset too many people.
So that's Michael's background. Very good human.
Nice meeting you, Michael. Thank you, Jamie. And we have met Gareth Ford Williams, so we're aware of some of the work that you've done, and we're here to see how we can contribute to taking that a step forward.
So, any other questions from the room?
No questions. We've just had a couple of people saying thank you for an interesting talk, and they've had to drop off because they've got another meeting to get to. I don't see any more questions apart from the ones that have already been asked. I'm sure we will have a few over the next week or so. People will have a think about things and come back with questions. I'm sure of that. Let's see.
That's cool. Gosh, it's very unusual for me to do a session and end early. Gosh. Again, I think evidence that I've been replaced by an AI robot.
Or you've got a good audience, because generally it's one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. Michael just put a link to his current project in the chat. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Michael is always doing very clever things in very clever ways, frankly.
Yeah, I can tell.
Well,
Yes, Michael.
keeping myself amused now I've retired, or keeping my brain working so that if I can actually find some work, then somebody might pay me something. The subtitle measurement was literally, well, like Jamie, these subtitles are rubbish that I'm seeing on television. I want to be able to prove to somebody that they're rubbish.
Right.
6 months later, I'm emailing people and scaring subtitle providers.
Michael, you need to come and do a lunch and learn for us.
Yeah, you need
Can do. I've got a slide set. I'm putting one together for a in-person talk end of the month.
Yeah, so
but yes, no.
we can send you an email.
Drop me a line. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, super. We'll do that, and then it'll be good. It'll be really lovely to have you and come and talk about how you're challenging people with incorrect subtitles.
Yes, it's more not that. Well, yes, they are incorrect, as in they don't have all the words, and they turn up a minute or two late.
Okay. Yes.
Not good.
I know. But, lovely to meet you all. And Jamie, thank you so much for everything.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's been lovely. And, always fun to kind of have you over. I know it finished a bit early, but, I guess people just get some time back, no?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A bit more,
Yeah.
bit of extra lunchtime.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jamie. And I'll email you or message me on WhatsApp, and then I'll send you my number. Just email me, WhatsApp me, and then we can organize a date where I can come and see you.
Yep, and bring one of your lovely doggies.
Yes, I will do. I will do, darling. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
See you later.